right? So same with you guys, like to make that big jump to go to Calgary, like how was that for you guys?
Yeah, new city. I mean, what a learning curve. We lost money for the first year, pretty much, like, and a lot.
Yeah, but like when you say that, it still sounds like you're never going to give up on it.
Oh, never. It's profitable now. It's making money. It's growing. And
there's no like blueprint that's going to say, hey, after 1 year, it's going to make money. You just have to keep going.
Well, and that's one thing I was going to say to you, because you went to business school. I didn't. Yeah. And I remember we talked before, like, was there value in things you're doing now from school?
I'm going to say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I understood that there is a system and there's things out there to help you grow. There's to help a business. Like if I didn't go to school, I wouldn't know that there's formulas for things that help you solve wages. There's formulas for things to help you. Like if you do sales, X sales, you should have Y spent in advertising. Like people who figure that out have either had to read it somewhere or someone told them that, but that person learned it from somewhere else. So you just don't know that 1% or 10% of your sales should be spent into wage. 2% should be spent into marketing. Like how could someone figure that out without someone reading that or learning that, right? Like I could have self-taught myself, but I would have to Google it or hear it from somebody else or have a mentor. School kind of fast-tracked that in a sense where it spewed it all out at me, but I was like 19 years old. I didn't know what to do with it. So now that I owned a business, some of it jogged my memory and I went back to it, but it was more so for the life experience of what I guess school does for you as like personal growth. I wouldn't say like the knowledge growth, but like personal growth. Like it was the first time out of my life where your hand wasn't really held in an academics environment where if you failed, there was negative repercussions. So it was a learning curve in the sense that if I went to university, I spent all this money, $20,000, $30,000. If I failed, I failed. You go to high school nowadays, there's no such thing as failing. So I'm glad I went because it really gave my head a shake that like, hey, there's no passing because I showed up today. And that kind of led me to learn that that's kind of how real life is. Like it ripped that Band-Aid off. Like you went and worked a job where like you had bosses and your superiors like probably yell at you. Some of these kids have never been yelled at. They've never been given shit at work.
Yeah. I know. I mean, there's lots of times I walk around here and I feel like I'm too nice. And it's maybe just because of what I went through, which I understand. Like I try to treat everybody the way I want to be treated, but that's not always reciprocated.
But when you have your mechanic, like you messed up.
Oh,
you heard it.
Oh, yeah. When you're working with a group full of grown men at 19 and they don't put up with shit.
Yeah. So it's a similar situation, but maybe not to that extent, but like I learned real fast in school. Like if I didn't put the work in, I was going to fail. And I would and there's more of a connection to being responsible. I guess being held responsible. I learned that from school. So
see, when I left work to open up the first business restaurant, I always said that first year you can't buy the lessons that I learned or that you would learn.
You can
in
never
school.
no.
Like,
and that's a different type of learning. But like yeah, you're right. Like schooling, I'll never learn the stuff I learned. If someone asks me, can you run a business from going to school? No, you can't. You can't. It's impossible. But can you learn to be responsible enough to, get to a point where you can possibly start a business? Maybe not run one, but you can possibly start it. Yeah, sure. You learn. I learned the responsibilities real quick that, like I said, if I didn't put the energy in and actually work at it, I would get no reward. And up until that point, at 20 years old, through high school, I don't care who you are, it's a different world. You pass even though you fail. Nowadays, these kids you can't fail a kid.
Yeah,
and it's just the way we are. You can't even put an X on an exam anymore. Sometimes
the thing I mean, if you want to touch on the school thing, like, I mean, I bombed my way through high school, right?
I'm a C+ student.
Yeah,
but it's like a multi-million-dollar company now. It's
same, but it's like I wasn't passionate. Like, it's hard, like seeing how the kids are treated nowadays. It's like, how do you expect someone to pay attention? I mean, I didn't because I'm not interested.
No.
Am I using half the stuff? Probably not. I wrote my teacher a letter in English in grade 12 because I was going to fail, and then I would have had to go back for another semester. I wrote him a letter and was like, listen, I'm never going to be an English teacher.
Yeah.
Probably just going to be your average working guy in a factory. Can you give me this mark? He gave me one project, said, finish this, you got it.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's where my skills were at.
Yeah, and there's a moment like that. I remember I was going to fail a math class, and it would have not held me back, but it would have like messed up me going to like university. It would have like did something really negative for me. And I remember like busted my ass and I studied and I got a tutor and I stayed after school, all the and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get out of this test like a 70, 75. And I got pulled in and she's like, you got a 50, which is a pass. But she's like, oh, you earned it. And I remember that. I still remember hearing that where I was like, if no matter how hard I worked there, right, I was working so hard to get a really good goal or a really good mark, I still only got a 50. So it kind of like right away let me learn, like I got to work harder. Like I got to be even better at it than like what I think is good enough for me. that stuck with me. I still remember that math teacher and I was like, man, I busted my ass for that. And I was like, I was expecting this great mark. And she's like, yeah, you just squeaked by. And she was like happy. She's like, oh, you really earned that 50. I was like, I was expecting like an 80. Like I was like disappointed. I was like crushed by that. And I was like, I'm gonna have to work. Like, I think that's when I realized like, that's what people say when like, there's somebody hungrier out there. Like there's gonna be people working harder than you. You gotta work, you think you're working hard enough, there's someone working harder.